Good morning. Welcome to the Saturday edition of the NBA Betting Show. With us, as always, we've got Mike Lockey from LivePokerCoaching.com. We've got Matt Milesman from DraftKings Show The Slate from his own podcast, Studying the Sharps. I'm Mike G, and I am VP of the Jose Alvarado Fan Club. Let's jump straight into a quick recap from a game we had value pegged for yesterday that seemed to come through for all of us. Matt, what do you want to talk about from that New Orleans game?
I was really excited we were going to have a mega Alvarado game and we were going to get to really gloat about him because he had 16 points in the first half. He finished with 20, so it was still a good game. But I was hoping we'd be able to show up today and start talking about how Alvarado had like 30, 35, and he's the greatest player of all time and whatever. But he was.
Is this a crazy take? But after our discussion about him yesterday, I floated over to the DFS showdown and just started a hand build lineup with Alvarado captain and I didn't submit anything. I just ran through the motions a little bit. But if we have all this NBA knowledge floating around and we know who the difference makers are, is it obviously is price sensitive, obviously Matt, blah, 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 blah. But is there something to just say, maybe we are more efficient than the market on a part of this game? And because of the way DFS Showdown is structured, that's really a way to leverage. If you're right, you can really be right in those examples. So I don't know, maybe that's just getting off the rails too much, but that was the thought I had yesterday.
I actually, when I was playing DFS, I was using the ability to be ahead of the market more to judge if there was a blowout probability different than the market. So like a game where, Memphis is playing OKC and the public or the field or whatever thinks it's going to be close and we think there's a much higher chance of a blowout, I would kind of use that. Alvarado, I think statistically is not where we're getting our edge on him. It's his ability to impact the game defensively. It's his ability to not turn the ball over. So it's not like he's scoring more points than people expect. He's just having more
turnovers are negative points and steals are positive points. So
sure. Is it possible the DFS sites are undervaluing him? Maybe, but it's more about his overall court impact that isn't really measured with mainstream stats. It's more like he's out there, and because of that, the team just kind of flows better.
Example for this type of thought, though. Yeah. It was just
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one to keep an eye on, especially when it's a guy like Quickly that may be getting more minutes because his value is going to come on the offensive end, so the points are really going to show up.
Yeah.
That when we looked at that net rating for Alvarado, he's great defensively. It's not. Yes, he gets steals. We all know that lovely play where he hides the sideline and comes in from behind, but he's just a tough defender that, like Matt said, affects the spread. So it's an interesting one. I think we should keep an eye on that for some of our undervalued betting show all-stars that we've talked about, but maybe guys that maybe are more box score as opposed to just point spread. Anything else from that game? So if you were watching yesterday, we had Alvarado was questionable, and I think we were showing 3 or even 4 points of value.
Yeah, it was close to 4.
If he was in. So we were saying to hold off until you get news. I know from our standpoint, I wasn't able to watch it right up to game time, but it was pretty close, and I didn't see him being ruled out. So we got a bet down on the assumption he was in at that point. And he didn't have a 30-point game, but he had a solid game, which is part of the reason why we like that bet.
20 is pretty good too. Yeah, we also did get some line movement for him, which means maybe the market is catching up a bit. The game closed at Pick'em, and it had opened at 2. Even when we got on for the show, the 2.5s were gone, and the 2s were almost even gone. I got in for a bit at 2, and then when I saw him game time decision, I took some at 1.5 because I figured if he was going to warm up, he was probably fine. Game time decision to me in that context was an upgrade. But when he was officially confirmed, it was pick 'em across the board. So we did get some line movement there. There was a bit of closing line value. And the game went well. I mean, they were down early, but they ended up winning pretty easily. So good job, Alvarado. Good job, Zion. I mean, Zion was their best player last night. He had 35 points.
That dunk at the end of the game was awesome.
Yeah,
Zion's cool.
I was going to mention that. It's one of my favorite petty things that happens in the NBA. The outrage that happens when a guy makes a meaningless dunk. There was all kinds of. He had to apologize after the game. Both teams.
Did he? I hate that stuff, man. Grow up.
Like I said, and again, the thing that always cracked me up is the guy that seemed most offended in games like that when somebody would go for 50 when they were stuck at, they had 48 points. Guess who was the one who got most offended? It was Kyrie. And he would give this whole thing about it's not basketball purity and all this. He kicked the ball into the stands one time when somebody took a shot with 3 seconds left when the game was over, but he wanted to get his 50 points. So anyway, fun petty thing. We'll see if Phoenix circles this game on the calendar for the next time.
Well, they're playing each other tomorrow.
Play Sunday.
Yeah, they're playing tomorrow.
Oh, really? Okay,
yeah.
So we got a revenge game.
Yep.
Maybe the Suns will wake up and play.
I was pretty sure I saw that right. When I looked ahead of the schedule, they play each other again.
All right, so we had a good one that we recommended yesterday.
Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna interject now because this is the login to your betting apps alert of the day.
10:30 news for the Nets.
Yes, I don't actually think it will come now, but it could. Okay. So if anyone's listening and has no idea what I'm referring to, Brooklyn has made a habit of the 10:30 a.m. injury report. But on a back-to-back, they may wait longer. Like, we may not get the news as early because Kevin Durant may still be sleeping. Or whatever. Like, they may not. But it does look like I have the odd screen over to my left over here. So there's some flickering going on. We had this yesterday where sites just started moving lines in the Cleveland game, and it turned out it was because Donovan Mitchell wasn't at shoot-around. There could be a Brooklyn shoot-around going on right now. Could be.
Okay.
So, right, so maybe we'll pause for let's just lay out what we are looking at for this game, right? Okay. Unfortunately, despite being so far ahead of the market and just ahead of the news cycle on Durant, we don't really have a great value on this game. I'm going to pull
up. What do you have fair line with him out?
Okay, here we go. So fair line with Kevin Durant out, because what we're looking at right here has him in. Fair line with Kevin Durant out is going to be roughly Pacers -2. And right now the Pacers are -1. Because we were hoping that we would be able to get Indiana as a small to medium underdog, and that line just never was available. FanDuel did open at +3, and that's pretty close to what we had as the fair line with Durant in. And it wasn't worth just betting it immediately because we only really thought Durant was going to rest if last night's game was close. And it ended up being close, but before the game, we didn't know that yet. So I took a little bit just when Ben Simmons got ruled out, because we got the thing that we said almost never happens, where a player got ruled out for rest for the following day before that night's game. The Nets did say before last night's game Simmons wasn't going to play on Saturday. So the line already started dropping from that, and it kind of took away because every book that opened after that had a lower line. Like, everyone opened at Pacers +1 because they already had the Simmons thing, and they already got the Durant uncertain, which he's not going to play today.
Gotcha. So let's talk about actions that we're ready to pounce on. If
Durant is at shoot around, I'm going to be betting on the Nets.
I just had my heart skipped a beat. Like, you're telling me things that are really happening rather than a prediction.
I thought you were giving breaking news there.
What's going on with Durant?
So I think the most actionable thing is there's some chance he plays, right?
Yes, but I think that's super unlikely. I think there's an 80% chance, if not higher, Durant is sitting today. I think I agree. But I think Kyrie could sit.
Sure.
We've heard nothing about Kyrie Irving for this game. But, why can't he have a rest game also?
Yeah, you're actually, I didn't realize he got so offended last night, so.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so.
And it's Kyrie Irving, right? So there could be other things, too, that who knows? We don't know what's going on with
Kyrie. I agree with that.
Yeah. I think right now, because we're confident enough that Durant is going to be out, and because there's even greater upside if Kyrie sits too, it might be worth getting in Pacers at pick'em or -1. The problem is, if Durant does play in the 20% scenario where Durant plays and Kyrie plays, you have a really bad bet now. The Nets are going to be favored if that happens. But I think it's pretty unlikely. So best case scenario, you're available today to just react to the news because we're going to get something. If Durant and Kyrie are in, Brooklyn is a pretty good bet. If Durant is out and more guys than Durant are out, Indiana's a good bet. But if just Durant is out, we kind of don't have anything. We'd be showing a very small amount of value on Indiana. So if Durant and just Nick Claxton are out, like Claxton missed last night's game due to a hamstring injury, it kind of sounded like he'd be ready today, but I'd actually tweeted like maybe they're saving him for when Simmons and Durant are out for Saturday, and that's why they didn't play him last night. It could just be that. But if we get Durant and Claxton both out, we still have a bit of value on the Pacers. So it really depends how available you are. If you are very available today, wait and see is the approach here. But it's much more likely we have an Indiana bet than a Brooklyn bet, because Durant and Claxton being out, that's enough to give us Pacers value, even with them already being favored by 1. And then we have the potential upside that Kyrie gets a day off too. And then we're looking at a fair line of like Pacers -6 or 7. Because you get a massive compounding effect if Durant, Claxton, Irving, Simmons, and Warren are already ruled out. Like, who is even left on this team? Every player in the rotation would have a negative rating at that point. So if Durant and Kyrie, in addition to the guys who are already out, are both not playing, even if Miles Turner gets a rest game, and that's the other part of this that makes it confusing, is we talked about yesterday, like the Pacers are on a back-to-back too.
Yep.
So we don't know what they're going to do. Turner played 30 minutes last night. Halliburton played 32 minutes. Gut feeling they both play tonight, but it's certainly possible that Turner, who more recently has been on the injury report, he was questionable leading up to yesterday's game. There's certainly a chance Turner doesn't play. I think Halliburton will play, but Turner closer to 50-50.
Got it. All right, so a lot of moving parts.
Yep.
If something breaks while we're here on the show, we will let you know. Otherwise, if you have your Twitter feed set up, keep it monitored if you can. Matt will try to post things if there's time. Anything else on that game, or moving on to our next topic?
Yeah, let's move back to some of our recap, and then because we don't. Okay. I mean, we will get to Luka Doncic, but I would be really surprised if we hear anything about him in the next couple hours. Like, it's going to be more like early afternoon to mid-afternoon.
It's an 8 o'clock game.
And they played late last night. It was an ESPN game that started 10 p.m. local time, or 9 p.m. local time, 10 p.m. Eastern time. He's probably not awake yet, so we'll leave that one alone for now. We can keep going with the recap.
Okay. All right. What game you want to talk about next, since we already covered New Orleans?
So we had a couple weird things that popped up right at the end that we didn't really mention on the show, and they turned into values. So Brooklyn, Atlanta, we got a Simmons minutes restriction. We got Claxton ruled out, which was kind of out of nowhere. And we actually ended up showing 3 points of value on the Hawks right before tip-off. Like, the line had been plus 7.5 all day, but our projected line fell from 7 to 4.5. And we lost Mike G's video. You guys, I don't know what happened, but that's okay. You guys just switched sides on my screen, but you're both here. Okay, so you, now you're on opposite parts of the... That's cool. So yeah, the Hawks ended up being a pretty good bet, and they lost by 4. Like, that just kind of worked out. The sort of the actionable thing to take from it is just there are going to be moving parts, especially on a slate as large as yesterday's, and there really isn't a solution for it for people other than to check in on the spreadsheet periodically.
All right, and again, for those that haven't seen it, the spreadsheet that Matt's talking about, the model that we are using for this show and we refer to,
looks
we
like
actually
this.
Make that available at the Preaching Sense. There's a link to it on the Preaching Sense Twitter account.
Yep, so and it's in the YouTube description for all these shows too. It should be under on the stream.
Right. So again, if you're not sure what to do, or where maybe there's late breaking value, check that sheet, the tab that the screen that we're showing here right now. That's the tab that identifies where there's value.
Yep.
All right, so we had late value showing for the Hawks,
and then the other one that was the same was Philly. Which, did you see the Sixers game?
No, I did not. I saw the score late fourth quarter and thought, oh, okay, looks good. And then I saw overtime, and let's just say my confidence in Doc Rivers as a strategical coach for overtime is not very high. So the fact that it didn't shock me that we lost the lead, and then it did shock me that we won in overtime. What did I miss?
Okay. Well, the first thing was before the game, we got Daniel House ruled out, which when I saw it, I thought there's like, I didn't think anything. Like, there was just no way that Daniel House matters enough to like change our projected line. But he actually changed our projected line by 2.5 points
Really?
because Matisse Thybulle gets to play if House is not available. And Matisse Thybulle is the third highest rated player on the Sixers roster ahead of Tyrese Maxey after Embiid and Harden because he is a just unbelievably
We
good
know a
defensive
lot
player.
about Bible.
Yeah. Okay. We've talked about Thybulle
Everyone-
on the show before,
look,
right?
Everyone knows about Thibault except for one person.
The coach of the team.
Yeah, Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
So, all right. So Daniel House being out gives more minutes to Thibault.
Yeah, it was
so,
like it was a projection of like 18 minutes, and even that was enough to move our line because House is bad. Like, it's not just that Thybulle's good; House is bad. So you're taking a pretty bad player and replacing his 18 minutes with a really good player. Okay, so the line for the game was like 4.5. I had already bet at a lower number, like 24 hours in advance, but even at minus 4.5, we were showing a pretty good bet with a projected line at 7.5. And we had been showing no value the whole day, and this one weird piece of news opened up way more value than we were expecting. So the game itself was kind of strange because Anthony Davis spent a lot of it in foul trouble, and when Davis was on the court, Philly was pretty bad. Let me pull up the plus minus actually, because I think I'm just kind of going by what I remember of it. But let's see if Davis was a plus 16 and Thomas Bryant was a minus 13. So the non-Davis minutes were pretty bad for the Lakers. And he was in foul trouble a lot early in the game. Second quarter, he had 3 fouls in the first quarter. He got his fourth early in the second half. So Philly ended up being up pretty big in the fourth. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of up by like 15 or so. They were up by 9 with 50 seconds left.
I was gonna say I thought I saw that, but then when I saw overtime, like that can't be.
And also Davis had 2 free throws down 1, right? They could have won in regulation.
Yeah, so I was at a bar with some friends last night, and there was a TV with this game on, like on the other side in a different room. And so out of like the corner of my eye was like kind of following it. Because I had looked at my phone, I saw 119, 110, 50 whatever seconds left. I'm like, all right, I don't need to check this. And then at the corner of my eye, I keep seeing like Lakers players going crazy like for a couple possessions in a row. And I didn't really understand what was happening. And it turns out there was a steal, and I'm trying to like watch this through like someone's armpit, and there's like a reflection off the window, and like there's another mirror in there, and I couldn't really see it at all. But it turns out there was like a steal, and then a 3, and another steal, and the Lakers wound up getting the ball down 3 with, I think it was like 8 seconds left, and Austin Reeves got fouled on a 3, made 2 free throws, missed the next one. And then the Sixers couldn't inbound the ball, and the Lakers got another shot at it. Davis got a steal and got fouled.
Yeah, so Davis got a steal, and then he got to the basket, got fouled, down 1, had 2 free throws to win the game, hits 1, misses the second, goes to OT.
And this is probably a very good game for me not to have watched.
Oh my God, I'm happy I didn't watch it too. But I kind of watched it.
You would have been so mad, Mike.
Yeah. I turned off the game the other night in overtime because I knew they had no chance. And this one, anyway. But then they still ended up covering.
Yeah, this is like a meta thing of now. I'm doing the same thing I was doing yesterday. I've got the Morocco score updating over here. We now have the lead. So Morocco, who I have to win the World Cup, is now in the lead with 3 more wins to go for the championship.
You know, I grew up in Philly. I
thought you were going to say I grew up in Morocco. We can forget about soccer.
We are doing this well. I love how now you and Morocco are we.
Me and the Morocco fan base. We know each other well. Yeah.
Right. We won't talk about how you were we with Iran the other day too.
There's a lot of countries I'm not proud of rooting for.
Right. The Sixers ended up covering. We predicted it, and it went right according to script as well.
Yeah, they won by 11 in overtime, so it was easy game.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else from yesterday?
Okay. Yeah, I still like emotionally am feeling the Laker game, but let's see if we can move on. Okay. So let's talk about the game we spent the most time with on the show yesterday. The Sacramento-Cleveland game.
Yes.
So the news just was really chaotic for this one. Yeah, I have it here. Sacramento ended up winning. And the regret I have mostly is that we didn't talk about betting the under, because Donovan Mitchell and De'Aaron Fox are both disproportionately offensive players. And without both of them, the total actually dropped. So when we did the show, the total had already moved by 4 points from overnight line. 226 open, it was down to 222. It closed at 217 with both of those guys out. So,
Okay.
like,
I
I
have a
guess in my
thought.
mind, I thought the value had already, dried up, but clearly not. And there were 201 points in this game.
So we have offensive and defensive ratings for each
Yes.
team. Why are we not using those ratings individually?
For players' independent total impact,
Just as a
because
thought.
because it doesn't account for pace, and pace is probably more important than the efficiency.
Well, it will get us closer than not having anything.
It'll get us a pace-free version of the teams,
That
but
sounds useful.
without pace, like, you're not even going to be able to remotely assess where the
Well,
team's
here's what I'm
projected points
saying.
should be.
If we had this exact same conversation where we were doing the game yesterday, and on the sheet we have maybe it's split into offensive rating and defensive rating,
Yeah.
or something like that, or offensive impact and defensive impact is a possibility. And so what I'm thinking is, yeah. And so obviously it's not one size fits all for these conversations, because every single piece is different, and the way they interact with the remaining replacements is also unique. So
Right.
That's
a big
I don't
part
even
of
know
it.
exactly what I'm looking for, but you say that these guys are disproportionately labeled for, or disproportionately
Right, like,
effective to
De'Aaron
the pace.
Fox is a
Maybe we just
plus
make a list
2.8.
of those guys. Who are those guys? Is
Yeah.
it 5 guys? Is it 10 guys? Is it 20 guys? I mean, I feel like there's ways for us to make progress on this topic,
Yeah, it's just that we can't originate.
even if it's in baby steps.
Yeah, it's just that we can't ultimately originate the total projection, because it's a different thing than player level projections, because team pace is a complicated thing. Like, when Luka is out, the team actually plays faster, and you would think if Luka's not playing, you want the under, which is partly true, but partly not true. And now we don't have Facundo Campazzo. We've got Kemba Walker. We've never even seen him play for the Mavericks before. So, like, we don't even know what the pace impact is going to be from Luka going to the bench. But
Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation. I'm going to propose that let's move on. I think maybe we talk about this offline. Maybe think about perhaps how we can do some stuff with the model.
Yeah.
But I know we've got some recommendations to make for today. So
Okay.
let's keep moving and
Fair
get
enough.
to where folks what to take action on.
Okay, so just like the end of the Kings Cavs situation is, we had Mitchell ruled out, which moved. Actually, I'm sorry. We ended up getting Fox before Mitchell, which we didn't really think was going to happen, because we had Mitchell not seen at shoot around in the morning. So from Mitchell not being at shoot around, the line went from +5 to like +4. And when I think it ended up getting close to 3. And then when Fox got ruled out, it went back up to 4. And then when Mitchell got ruled out, it was kind of expected at that point. Like, I don't think anyone was surprised, because we just hadn't gotten an update on him. And then one of the beat writers tweeted that he was in street clothes on the sideline when the team came out for warm-up. So the game ended up closing with a fair line at 4, and our projected line was 4, the real line was 4. It was the same. So we didn't have value on the closing line. We didn't even really have value on the line when we were doing the show either. Like, I bet +5 when we were on air. I ended up hedging and betting Cavs -3 because we had the fair line at 4, and the Kings won by 9, so it was kind of like no blood on the situation. So yeah, it really, like, there was a lot to learn from the experience of breaking down the injuries for that game, but really, like, we didn't end up having a recommendation that was very strong. If people got Sacramento from what we said on air, great, because there was a little bit of closing line value off the +5, but other than that, it was just, it was also unfortunate, and we should segue to the next game too. Very unfortunate situation for Utah futures, from Sacramento winning on the road in Cleveland. And then we can go to the Jazz game itself, because this was the one thing about yesterday that made it, that just ultimately kind of ruined what would have been almost a perfect day, is that the Jazz didn't win. So
Yeah.
why can't
Apparently
I
I
find the
played
game?
this
Oh, there
much
we go.
poorer than I thought I played it. So my recollection, my recollection of the show, which apparently is different than reality, my recollection was Conley was the important piece of news for the Jazz. If Conley was in, we liked the Jazz. And Markkanen, while he is a good player, maybe doesn't have a massive impact on the spread. And Walker Kessler is not that bad. So that's what I had in mind going into the news. I saw the Conley news. I reacted. I ended up getting Jazz -1.5. Turns out that wasn't the right way to play it. Obviously, that ended up being a loser as well. What did you do differently, and what did I screw up?
So you were half right with the analysis. Conley is way more important to the Jazz than Markkanen, but Conley was priced in like we kind of already thought he was playing. He was questionable, but much closer to probable. Markkanen, we didn't know if he was going to play. So when Conley got upgraded, the line didn't move because it was the expectation. So Utah at -1.5, we had as a good bet with Conley in, but it wasn't that good of a bet unless Markkanen also played at that number. Because even though Conley's more important, we had a difference in like projected probability of the guys playing.
Did you get 1.5 early or later?
Did I get it earlier? Is that what you're asking?
What did you have, I guess, is my
I
question.
ended up betting it at Pick'em after Markkanen got ruled out and after the line moved.
Gotcha.
Because Markkanen's impact to the spread is like 1 point or so. And I just wanted to wait for that correction so I could get it at a better number. Like I knew Utah was going to be a bet in some capacity. So like you didn't like we ended up having the projected line with Markkanen playing was like Utah -4, and the projected line with Markkanen out was like Utah -2.5. So to bet it at -1.5 wasn't terrible anyway, but it was a better bet at Pick'em. I mean, they both lost, so it doesn't matter. But I knew that if Markkanen got ruled out, the line would change, and if Conley got ruled out, the line would really change because Conley was expected to play.
Gotcha.
Like the word was that Conley, this was the game he was returning for. Like he almost played the other night against Golden State, and I think the reason he didn't has a lot to do with the fact that Steph Curry didn't play. And they knew they had this back-to-back coming up, both games against divisional opponents. Like last night they played Minnesota, who is right there with them in the standings, and they're in the same division. Now they're going into Denver. Like to have Conley available for those games was a lot more important than for that Golden State game where Curry, Wiggins, and Draymond all weren't playing.
Gotcha.
So Utah unfortunately didn't win. This was, I think, on spread bets last night. I ended up going 5-1. This was the one because the Jazz let us down, and now we're in a bit of danger with them for the bottom of the Western Conference standings or the bottom of the playoff portion of the standings. The possibility where they become the 11 seed and miss the play-in tournament looks a lot more real after this loss, losing at home to Minnesota, who's like right there with them. So that part of it is bad. And then I guess we can kind of use that to segue into tonight for these two teams.
How does
we do care about both.
how does Utah's win total futures compare to 538's projection?
538 is still optimistic. The problem is we don't know about a trade.
Yeah.
We just don't know.
As we've covered this before, it was tough to make a trade when they were 7, 8, 9 games over 500.
Right.
Now, Ainge will get no backlash for trades at this point.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they're 15-13, and they're probably going to be 15-14 after tonight's game. I still don't think they're going to trade anyone, but it's starting to get more like on the brink of maybe they do. They're not going to finish. There's nothing they can do to end up. There's nothing they can do that would put them in the category of Charlotte, Detroit, Orlando, Houston, San Antonio. They know that. Like they're 8.5 games ahead or more of those teams. So they can't get to the basement of the lottery. And even if they traded Conley, they're not even nearly as bad as those teams. They're way better than all of them. So I still feel like they're not going to make a move, but we don't know.
Got it.
Right? Like it depends what they get back. If they can trade Conley and get more picks and more young assets and all of that, maybe that is worth it to them. But
I was going to say the trade may not be to try to get to Wembanyama because that's too far away as you just recap. But the trade may be just to get assets, whether it's players or picks, that are more on the timeline of what they're going to do next year. They're going to be a young team, and Conley doesn't fit with that timeline.
Right, so it should at least give us confidence they're not going to blow it up. But they may move a guy or two, and they could get a little bit worse if they do that. Fortunately, though, they have, if they were to trade someone like Olynyk, Walker Kessler is one of the best rookies in the NBA, and they would be able to make up for that pretty easily. They don't really have a fix for trading Conley, though, and that's really the problem. They don't have great backup guards. They're okay, but Conley is much better.
Yeah, but I mean that could be a trade. I have to look to see who's got young guards that is close, that needs a veteran presence. So like that's what it could be. It could be a flip of Conley to a team that maybe has a young point guard that may be getting squeezed out or that just needs more time. So anyway, so interesting one to keep an eye on. So let's time to segue to today's game.
Yeah.
Start with Minnesota. Is it okay?
Yeah, let's go there. And I think we're going to have a little bit to say about Utah too, but let's do Minnesota first.
Gotcha. All right. So I see no one on the questionable list. So this one is just, we see value right now.
Yeah.
Talk about what the model is saying and what's available. So it looks like over 2.5 points of value.
Yeah. Just right before we get into this game, this is just a day to stay logged in for I want to say the next 2 or 3 hours. It's going to be important because we have potential news coming in a lot of places. This game, I don't think there's going to be any, but there might be. It's really, we're looking at Chicago.
Embrace the chaos of the NBA.
Yep, yeah. There's always something like that Memphis news thing that happened the other day where just everyone rested and it made no sense. I do have some input for that for tomorrow that we'll get to, but we're going to get some weird stuff today. Today's going to be weird. So to start with a game that is...
Something's going to blow out the Warriors like they should have last year?
Or, yeah, that would... I don't even know if I'll be happy about that at this point. For future bets, it'll be good because now we're on Celtics to have the most wins in the league. But not to get too sidetracked, we have this Minnesota game where the Wolves are on a back-to-back, but I don't think anyone is likely to sit, mostly because this game is really important for the standings. Right. They're in Portland, and they're division opponents. They are both competing to either make the play-in tournament or to exceed the play-in tournament. These are teams that are very likely to finish somewhere between the number 5 and the number 11 seeds in the Western Conference. And I think the Wolves certainly have to care about that to some extent. So to get an outright rest game, I think would be really unlikely. We could get Gobert pops up on the injury report with something. But I think Gobert in general usually winds up playing even in games where he gets downgraded to questionable. We've had a few of those already this season. Charlotte is the most recent example. Unless he gets downgraded for conditioning or rest or something, which is a different thing. But unless it's that, even a downgrade to questionable for him, I still probably assume he's playing. But I don't even think we're going to get that. I think Minnesota's probably full strength here. So at plus 5.5, we have a pretty good bet, like a 1-unit bet. Personally, I'm waiting a little bit longer because there's probably a 5 to 10% chance we do get someone on Minnesota not playing. It's a very low probability, but it could happen. And I also don't think this line is going anywhere.
I'm not sticking 100% with 5.5. I'm taking a little money line also.
I mean, that's fair too, but I don't think the line is going to move here much. It opened at 5.5 last night. It's still 5.5. I don't see a major reason why it would go down to plus 5. And if it did, I mean, just because I'm going to be logged in anyway, waiting for this Luka stuff and Durant and maybe Kyrie, hopefully, because I'm doing that anyway, if I see a book or two drop to plus 5, then I'll just take whatever plus 5.5s are available. And just while we're looking at this, the win has plus 6 now at minus 115. So, the longer you wait, the more likely you are to have the line go against you, but also the more likely you are to have it go for you where you can get a better number. So this kind of depends, but 5.5 is a good bet as it stands, either way.
So if you're not able to, for those watching, if you're not able to stay logged in and really keep on top of it, we are saying plus 5.5 is a solid half-unit bet or full unit bet right now.
I think it's worth a full unit, but I wouldn't bet that much yet because it is a bit fragile.
Okay.
No one on Portland is going to be out unless someone tests positive for COVID today. We already got their injury report yesterday. So
Okay.
Portland isn't fragile, but Minnesota is potentially fragile because they played a late game in Utah last night. Now they're traveling to Portland. Someone could wake up with knee soreness today, and we can never really fully predict that. So while I think it's unlikely, I think there's enough of a chance that that happens that I would just wait a little bit.
Okay. All right. So that covers the Minnesota game. Which
Yep.
one do you want to talk about next?
Um,
Is it Luka time, or are we saving that one?
just very quickly, let's do the Utah Denver game, and then we'll go there.
Okay.
The Jazz have Conley and Markkanen uncertain for this game. Both we have projected to play. So the fair line is 8. The current line is 8. But I think there's a shot that Conley is resting and Markkanen ends up being sick still and can't play. So I think the only scenario we get a Denver bet is if both guys are out. But it's one to watch because if both of those guys are out, Denver's going to look pretty good. We're going to have a projected line at like -11.
Got it.
So we would want to lay the 8 points only if both guys are ruled out. If it's just Conley, I think our projected line would go to like 9.5 or 10. And
Okay.
it's semi-interesting there, but I think I would probably... I mean, if you can get a -7.5 instead of an 8, like we're on the fringe there. But if both of these guys are out, then I think Denver's a good bet.
Got it. All right. And since we can't leave Denver without talking about our favorite topic, what's DeAndre projected for
Oh,
today?
yes. Great question. Let's find out. 13 minutes. So
Good.
we don't have to worry here that Denver can be rated
It's suddenly
worse.
worse.
Yeah. If anything,
Right.
they could go the other way. Although
Right.
I expect DeAndre is going to play this one because he played well last game somehow.
Yeah, it was probably that second half was probably the best. The best
Yeah.
DeAndre that there's been in 2022.
Yeah, for him
so-
to be +9 in any stretch of basketball is virtually impossible in the last 4 years. So they're not going to bench him after that. That was the best game he's had in a long
Yeah,
time.
no, I'm with you. I was going, although part of it was for joking reasons because
Yeah.
we love to talk about DeAndre, but I was, it's more, since he's already projected at 13 minutes, we have upside if he doesn't play that.
Right.
So it wasn't like the other night where he was projected for 0. So there was that, we had something to keep an eye on. But anyway, all right. So that game, the actionable steps are if Markkanen and Conley are both out and you can get anything in the -8 territory, go ahead and grab that. If you just get Conley out, it's not enough to take action.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. Which game you want to move to next?
All right, let's talk about Luka. There's more after this, but let's make sure we get this one covered.
Mhm.
It's the clock is moving a bit. We could get a Luka update at any time.
All right, and is Luka actually listed on the injury report as questionable, or this is just
Nope.
a NBA show, NBA
It's a Michael
Basketball
special.
exclusive?
The questionable
Wow.
tags that I have are my own personal assumption of who is
That's
questionable.
fine.
Like Kristaps Porzingis is the same. He is also not on the injury report, but I think
Got it. No,
he's
I'm
got
with
some
you.
rest
So,
potential
talking about
too.
This Dallas game, we did cover it a good bit yesterday.
Yep.
Saying that if Luka plays in the 35-minute range, going especially against Drew Holiday, a high likelihood that maybe he's out. So he did play 36 minutes. What are we looking for today before we take action?
Well, unfortunately, Dallas didn't win last night. So what we really wanted was the Mavericks to win a close game. And they
Right.
almost did it. Apparently, they missed their final 6 foul shots of the game. I don't know how many of those were Luka, but I know Dorian Finney-Smith with a 1-point lead missed a pair of free throws. And then Brook Lopez got a layup for the lead. And then Luka missed at the buzzer. So the best case scenario would have just been Luka makes that final shot, or it goes
If
to
he hit
overtime and they
it,
win in
does.
overtime.
Yeah, overtime and a Luka 40+ minutes game would
Yeah.
be even gooder.
Yep.
So, all right. So
I think it's still 30%.
Yeah, if Luka had made that final shot, I would have put his rest probability at like 70.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And because he missed it, it might only be 30 or 40.
Yeah.
okay. All right. So, what's the strike point? If Luka's out, then bet. If the line is what? Like what? If you're able to
It's,
monitor it,
Any
anything
line.
that's going to be available.
Yeah, there's no way that this line moves enough prior to Luka news that you wouldn't want to bet a large bet on it. Because
Okay.
we're showing a slight negative EV bet on Chicago right now at -2. I had said yesterday, if you can get Chicago as an underdog, just take it like right away and don't even wait. But we never got that line. I don't actually remember if I'd said it or not. Maybe you guys can remind me. Like if Chicago opened pick'em, maybe it was worth betting a little bit. I don't actually really remember. We laid
I
out a
forget
lot of
what we
scenarios.
discussed.
What did
I
you?
just said I forget what we discussed on
Oh,
that
okay.
one.
Yeah, I don't remember because we laid out like 4 different potential scenarios just for this. Um,
Right.
but I guess my feeling after the game was it's worth betting like Chicago is a small favorite, especially if you can cash it out later, because the Luka rest thing, I do think it's priced into the line to a degree. The Bulls have already moved from -1 to -2. I don't know if there's a reason for that other than like the market thinks there's a tiny chance he's out. Like there might be a 5% rest probability priced in here. So
Got
if
it.
we get no news and everyone on Dallas plays, the line could fall back to like +1. But that doesn't
Okay.
really matter if you don't have a bet yet. That's pretty irrelevant because you only want to bet here if Luka's not playing.
Got it.
So then what we're talking about is like for the people who can't necessarily wait around all day, do you take like Chicago -2 or Chicago money line and just hope he's out? And then if you can check back in later, you probably have to cash out for a small loss or, bet back the other way for a small loss. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like I already have 2.5 units on the Bulls at -1 from last night.
Okay.
And if Luka winds up playing, I'm just gonna cash out at the places where I can do a cash out, or I'm gonna just bet the other side. I'll probably end up letting a little bit of it ride because I don't want to compound negative EV, but I will do some hedging because in terms of bankroll, like that would be a stupid amount to have on a game with no value.
Got
So
it.
for now, I think what ideally is you want to just be able to be ready if he gets ruled out and bet. I mean, Luka is worth 8 points or so normally. In this context where he's not well rested, where he played last night, tough game, it was everything we thought it would be. Like tough game with Drew and Giannis. It was very close. He played his normal minutes. This version of Luka is maybe like 6, but that puts a fair line at. I mean, we're up to like 7.5 for Chicago, and the
Got
line
it.
is only -2. So that's a 2 unit bet, like maybe even higher.
Easily.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we could get other guys out in addition to Luka. The other thing, though, part of the reason that I think it makes sense to just take some Chicago now is that we could get players that are not Luka resting instead of him.
Anyone's liable to rest, right?
And the thing is,
Right. So then you're losing some of the decent Dallas players.
no. But here's the thing:
Fired
guys
Luka.
like Dinwiddie and Wood and Bullock, those 3 players, the line will actually. And I'm going to pause for 1 second because we're getting a bit of line movement happening in Indiana. Just want to be logged in.
Steady lads.
DraftKings just moved it 0.5 point. Something happening. Maybe not. Sometimes lines move because someone made a bet, and it's not because Durant isn't at shoot around. Okay, I think we're okay for now. Okay, the reason I think we have more potential to just bet Chicago early and then wait is because Christian Wood is viewed by the market as being good. We've already discussed previously he actually doesn't matter for our projected line. Spencer Dinwiddie has a slight negative impact on the team. He's rated poorly too. And the market will think that he matters also. But again, this is the tired Dinwiddie. This is the back-to-back Christian Wood. These are not their well-rested selves. To replace Dinwiddie with Kemba might actually be an upgrade in the scenario where Dinwiddie just had to play last night. Like we saw how Dinwiddie looked last time when we bet that Dallas-Houston game when they were on a back-to-back. Dinwiddie missed literally every shot. I think he was like 2 for 15. So getting Dinwiddie or Wood out could move the line more towards Chicago, and then you're able to hedge and not lose any money if Luka's in. It gives you more of like a backup plan for the scenario where Luka winds up playing because the line will keep pushing towards Chicago if someone else is ruled out, and then you can just bet back Chicago and you won't, it's no harm, no foul. And then Bullock actually has a significant negative impact on the team because his backup, Josh Green, is way better than him.
Yeah. I did see an article yesterday that the headline was Josh Green is going to get paid. So
He should. He should. We're going to get paid by caring about him, and he should get paid for being as good as he is.
There we go. All right. Anything else on the Dallas
Go
game?
down, Captain.
Move on.
Mr. Green.
I think that's everything on the Dallas game. So just to summarize, I think regardless of where you're at for today, like if you can be around to make bets or you can't, as long as you can be around before tip-off to hedge if necessary, I think it's worth betting Chicago now. I think it's up to anyone's personal preference to determine how much, but there's so much upside with a Bulls bet and very little downside because there's a good chance you'll be able to get out of the bet for either no loss or a very small loss. And Luka's probability of resting is probably 1 in 3, something like that.
Yeah, that's fair.
And even if we're wrong about that and there's only a 10% chance he's sitting, there's so much upside for that other 90 for that 10%, even though the 90% is, we don't gain anything, but there's so much upside because he's so good and the rest of the team is so bad that I think it's still worth going for it, even though we're probably going to end up not being able to capitalize on it.
Got it. All right. So as usual, lots of moving parts.
Yep.
A few things to keep an eye on there. And Matt will try to keep us updated on the Preaching Sense Twitter account if time permits. All right. What other game has potential value that's worth talking about here, Matt?
Yeah, Cleveland, if Mitchell plays, is really the thing.
Okay.
We have OKC. OKC is the same line every game. What is happening?
They're 6.5-point dogs on the road.
Every game, right?
Yeah.
Like every single time they play. How does I don't understand.
The NBA's version of hell is being 82 games on the road for the Thunder.
Right? Do they even play home games? Have they had one this year?
They don't have a home city. They're just the Thunder. They just travel around.
Yeah, that's what it feels
The
like.
rolling Thunder. There we go.
All right. So we're showing if Mitchell's in, we got almost 3 points of value there.
Yeah, I just want to check and make sure I have the manual adjustments. Okay. Those are we're okay on that front. I've already given OKC their standard 1.5 point bump for maybe being less bad than we think.
Okay.
And we don't have news on the Thunder. Lou Dort is off the injury report. I guess they kind of just rested him for the Grizzlies game. There is a chance that other Cavs could sit because Mitchell plays.
Okay.
We don't really care about too many of them though. Like it's Jared Allen, it's Darius Garland for sure. Karis LeVert doesn't matter unless Mitchell is also out. So we don't care about this game anyway if Mitchell's out. LeVert doesn't have a major impact if Mitchell and Garland are both playing. He only really matters because he fills a much bigger role if one of them isn't there. So we really just care about Mitchell unless we get a Jared Allen rest game.
Got it.
And I don't have him listed here because I don't think it's very likely Allen sits. I think he was legitimately hurt, and that's why he was out for as long as he was. He's not like generally a rest guy. So I think it's worth paying attention to him, but I don't think it's very likely he's out. And then for Mitchell, what we had talked about yesterday was they might be more cautious with the Sacramento game because it is a back-to-back. And even though it seems like the Cavs should care more about playing the Kings than they would about the Thunder, both those teams are in the opposite conference. Like, it doesn't really matter. So they could have just been saving Mitchell for today. And I think it does mean that Mitchell is probably closer to in than out. 60-40 he plays. Would I bet it now? I mean, it's not a good bet at all if he doesn't play. Because Mitchell is really good. And we have a projected line at like 4.5 if he's not in. So we need him to play. Like, I don't think this is one where you just bet it early and hedge later. Like, the line will fall a pretty good amount if he gets rolled out.
Gotcha.
So I'm just trying to wait and bet them if he's in.
If we get news that he's at shoot around,
that's
betting it then, or are you waiting for confirmation? Yeah,
that's good enough. I think because he missed yesterday, him being a shoot around that's an upgrade, definitely.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Okay.
So
right.
No, that's a good thing to call out because yesterday we based everything around him not being at shoot around. Right. And it turned out that was very, very important. If he's at shoot around today, they may not even have one because it's a back-to-back. But if they do and he's there, I think we assume he's in. So if we see that update, I think just bet the Cavs.
Got it. All right. Anything else with value or potential value today? Talked about Dallas.
Unfortunately, the Clippers line moved enough that the Porzingis thing is not really going to open up much. So the Clippers open -4, and if Porzingis rests, we'd have the line projected at -7. But it's already gone up to 5.5. So it's kind of actually, I don't know even know if the market did this on purpose, but the current line is a midpoint for the Porzingis situation, and he's not on the injury report. I just think there's a good chance he rests today.
All right. One other game I want to at least make a quick call out on. If I'm seeing this correct, are we showing Boston with 1.5 points of value against Golden State tonight?
Oh yeah, we might be.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't joking about that Celtics comment earlier, but
Yeah.
back the truck up.
We generally are recommending bets if it's 2 points of value or more. So as the math nerd who usually only goes by the model, I am making my exception for the Celtics. I'm sticking with if there's any value on Celtics, I'm getting something down. So at a point and a half, it's actually pretty close to our 2-point threshold.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And some of the books are up to -3, so it's a bit of validation for a -2.5 bet.
Gotcha.
So we're gonna go ahead and secure at least a half unit now.
Theoretically, I may be logging into my site right now as we speak. So yes,
I do want to bring up one more very subjective thing on this note that you may like.
Go ahead.
Okay, John Wall is playing tonight in Washington for the first time since he left the Wizards. And Reggie Jackson is out for rest. George and Kawhi are playing, but we don't have props yet. There's nothing available. You know what? I can check a couple other sites.
Talk to me.
Like, how much is this going to matter to him? Like, this is... Because not every revenge spot is different. Does he care about this a lot?
Top 10% petty player.
Yeah.
Beal, or we're talking about Wall?
Wall, excuse me, Wall.
Beal's not playing, so there's nothing like Wall, seeing Beal again. Yeah, this is just Wall. But you think Wall is especially petty?
I think this is pretty good.
All right, I can't get DraftKings to load on my computer. Let me see if I can check if they have props available on my phone. FanDuel had nothing yet. I don't know. That could be because of Porzingis. Like, the Clippers already gave us their injury report. We already know who's not playing for them. It's like Norman Powell and Reggie Jackson. The thing about Wall, though, is he's probably going to start, and he never starts. So we could be there's no lines yet, but we could actually be looking at a larger amount of minutes for him than normal, which, like, that alone makes it interesting.
Right.
Yeah. I stayed quiet when you were asking.
Okay.
Normally, I like to weigh in on these revenge game possibilities.
I know.
I think Wall's. It's been so long. I think he's just so relieved that he's back and at least has a spot. I don't know about the grudge, and there's nothing scientific there, but there probably is something.
Yeah.
And
no, our grudge talk was very scientific.
Yeah, I'm saying there probably is something there, but if there's something there and there's a minutes bump, it's
right.
Here's my thoughts. Life is full of small choices. When you play basketball, you have so many small choices you have to make. If the incentive goes a certain way, you're charged up. It's a certain kind. I think guys are just more likely to shoot more. I just think they're more likely to take the 15-foot jumper than pass it to the corner three. I just think, and maybe that's reading too much into it or making too many assumptions, but I think the guy is gonna want to put on a B+ performance at bare minimum.
Sure. Well, I think it's something to pay attention to, but I'm still probably only going to bet it if the DFS projection sites have him projected for an overbet. So normally I wouldn't even look because I don't spend a lot of time looking through player props. I don't think the DFS projection sites are good enough at their usage predictions where, like, generally you can get a great edge from that. But because we have an extra reason to look at him, I think if they are projecting overbets,
this is the type of stuff that's hard to model.
It's for sure. We may get just a disproportionately high over-under for him because Reggie Jackson's out. Like, if John Wall's points prop is 16.5 tonight, there's absolutely no way I'm betting the over.
Understood.
But if it's 12.5, like, okay, like then I'm probably interested.
Yeah, this is definitely one I'm going to watch both the sites. So we use Stochastic for our minutes projection on the model that you're looking at on the screen. I know for props, I'll be looking at Stochastic and Establish the Run just to see if they both have a real high minutes projection, and also look at what the PRA projections are. But it is definitely an interesting spot. All right. Any other games to watch? Anything else we think might be popping?
Okay, I don't think we're doing a show tomorrow, so I want to call out tomorrow's games, and I will put them on Twitter also because like these are we potentially have some big stuff. Okay, the Bulls are on a back-to-back front end tonight, second leg of it tomorrow in Atlanta. I don't think there's going to be a ton there. We kind of talked about this before the show that the Bulls just don't have great players, and even if you get like a Levine rest game, it's not, he's worth like a point. Caruso matters a lot, so we can kind of watch that. But the one I'm really eyeing is Milwaukee, because normally I'd probably ignore a spot like this. It's an island game. The Bucks played last night. They don't play today. They don't play Monday. But Sunday is a game in Houston. And the next 4 games for Milwaukee after that are Tuesday versus Golden State, Thursday in Memphis, Saturday versus Utah, and then the next game after that is in New Orleans. They've got a bunch of playoff teams coming up on the schedule. We can debate if Utah actually is one, but whatever. Their next game is against the Warriors. They just played an ESPN game against Dallas.
The Rockets are clearly a bottom feeder.
The Rockets are nowhere near any of the teams I just mentioned. Yeah. Like, we could get, I wouldn't be surprised if at 6:30 p.m., 5:30 or 6:30, those are like injury report submission times, we get all the Bucks players for tomorrow ruled out today. Like, I wouldn't be shocked by that. So I'm going to be watching for it later this afternoon. We're going to have a fair line for that Milwaukee-Houston game. This is hard because we don't know what the line is yet. There isn't one. But we're going to have the fair line, assuming no one is out for either team, at like Bucks minus 12. And my gut is we're going to see a line of like Bucks minus 9. So we actually would be showing a bit of value on Milwaukee. But if Giannis, Drew, Middleton, Brook all don't play, which I actually think is on the table, we're going to have a fair line of like Houston minus 3. So it doesn't matter what our projected line is with them in, because they're so important. Like, if all those guys are out, like,
you think they're going to sit all of them though?
Maybe not. But Middleton had knee surgery this offseason or early this season. Giannis and Drew tend to sit at the same time. Like, Brook could play. They like to have Lopez play without all of them for some reason. I think I would put it at north of 20% that Giannis, Drew, and Middleton are sitting.
Okay. All right. So an interesting one, interesting spot to look at. Watch the injury news or the official announcements, and it might be time to bet on the Rockets.
Yep. We have not bet on the Rockets yet this season.
Back the truck up.
Correct, and it might be the only opportunity to bet them as a favorite. So.
Well, they'll be favored when the game starts, but we're hoping to get them as a 9-point underdog.
All right. Yeah, sorry. Exactly.
We're hoping to have like plus, 350 or 400 or something?
Yeah. I don't know that I'm just going to blindly bet it without any news, because it's still the unlikely outcome, but there's so much potential for upside that I might anyway. It depends what the line is. Like, if it's double digits, if they're getting double-digit points, the reason to just take it early is because it's not going to go any higher than that, and you can always hedge it later. Like, there's no downside then. But if it opens and the Rockets are only plus 8.5, I probably won't bet it right away, and I'll just keep an eye on it. But it is, like, the news for that rest could happen anytime between probably 5 p.m. today and 2 p.m. tomorrow, which is why it won't happen in the middle of the night. Well, it won't happen. It'll happen either between like 5 and 7 tonight, or like 5 and 8 Eastern time, or it'll happen tomorrow. We're not going to get news at midnight for the Sunday game. So at least you can go to sleep. But or do whatever else you do at midnight. But I think there's actually a chance. When I say good chance, like I don't think that means anything. Got to actually quantify it. But there's like a 10% chance, maybe higher, that we get several Milwaukee guys ruled out for tomorrow's game this evening.
Okay. All right. So an unusual one that probably is not being mentioned anywhere else. So
Sir, there's no way. No one's talking about this. I think I can say that with full confidence. I'm the only person on earth saying this right now.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm pretty confident that at 11:30 a.m. on December 10th, nobody else is talking about the possibility of good value for the Houston Rockets.
Yeah.
I think we are safe to say, but we will certainly make a clip of this when we get.
I would love to.
Closing line values. So
yeah, the game is in 32 hours and there's no betting line yet.
Got it. Okay. Sounds good. All right. Anything else to call out for in advance?
There's going to be some interesting stuff tomorrow with like teams playing the teams they just played. Like we mentioned that Phoenix New Orleans game, but nothing actionable. So
Got it.
I think I'll just go watch the end of the Morocco game now.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks everybody for watching. Keep an eye on the Preaching Sense Twitter account. We are having our day of rest on Sunday, but we'll be back Monday, 10 a.m. to recap what's been happening and hopefully identify new value for you. Thanks for joining, everybody.